make some history on street racing.
That way the kids don't have any reason to be on the public streets.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the AARA podcast. I'm Chris Harris. I got Sinclair Gordon.
Let's meet you.
As we learn and grow within the organization and really get to learn about the history of this motorsports culture, we learn so much. Sometimes it's rare that you learn about legends and then they've passed on and it's too late for you to get a perspective and from their mouth about how this sport has gone through the years. But today, that has absolutely changed, and we have a bona fide motorsports legend with us today. There are legends in this game that are on record saying he's the reason why they got into the sport and be able to become the household names that they were. So without further introduction, I'd like to introduce everybody to the legend, Tommy Bolton. Everybody knows him as TomBo. TomBo, what's up?
Just doing this thing. You know, just coming off of a birthday last Friday, 61, and this is crazy because I'm starting to race again. You know.
Ooh. You know what? That kind of brings me to my first question. It's a two-part question. So I need to know: do they clank when you walk? And how the hell does it feel going 200 miles per hour? Because it takes a special type of person to do that.
Well, see, the thing that you got to look at is I did this in 1990. 1990, where you couldn't just go, and this is what I try to explain to a lot of the young cats now. Now you can go buy everything. Back then you couldn't go buy everything, you know. So we had to build and build and work on our own stuff back then. You know, that's how we was able to. That's what nowadays makes my 20 miles an hour so good. I couldn't buy. You couldn't buy all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you couldn't buy all of that stuff. It wasn't like you could go. You could, like now you can get on the computer. If you got $30,000, you could buy a 200-mile-an-hour bike right now. Back then you couldn't. You know. So to be honest with you, I think I did it before. I did it before then because I was building my bikes and all that junk back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it felt, I don't know, it felt good, but it felt good, but it felt good at Texas Motorplex. But I actually think I did it on Lincoln and Pershing in LA. On the street. So,
that's unofficial.
Yeah. I actually think I did it there, you know, because, you know, because the bikes had got, you know, you're going to laugh at this. Back then, we did a lot of street racing, and I was one of the characters that raced on the street, and I didn't like wearing helmets.
Oof.
And so I didn't like wearing helmets. I just didn't like wearing helmets. And so at that particular time, I seen the bikes was getting faster and faster and faster. And I got on this bike and took a pass, and man, you go get in the fourth gear and you can't breathe. And I said, whoa, there's something going on here. You know, I said, maybe it's time to start putting on a helmet, you know, but that's the way I raced back then.
So whoa. So fourth gear all the way out. You're probably doing like $120, and that's when you decide that you want to put a helmet on? No.
I had bikes that I had put together, and I would go to the track, and they'd go 140, 100, and almost 150, and I'm still with no helmet on racing these cats. So now when I get to this bike that's about to choke you on the other end, that's when I say, oh, it's time to put a helmet on.
Well, the only reason why he put on the helmet because he couldn't breathe. But if he could breathe, it would still wouldn't have a helmet on.
Yeah, so you know, so all of that stuff was crazy back then.
But what did you set out to go? Like, was it a goal to go 200, or you were just like, yo, I just want to go fast, and that number just happened to hit?
Well, it's crazy because all of this is a progression. It's all a progression like I was saying one time before, I grew up in L.A., so all of the fast guys was around there at that particular time. And in order to cut your bones back then, I raced a lot. I raced a lot on the street and all of those things. Sometimes it got extremely dangerous, and sometimes you know, we race for money all the time. Like when they started talking about the street races, I was like, dude, I've been doing this stuff since I was a kid, and and
You were like
this stuff,
12, right? 12, 13?
yeah, and it all if and it all started if my mom had a, you know, if my mom had a I was in this guy's class, Mr. Hart's homeroom band, and he had a band. So Mr. Hart said, hey Tom, you want to be in my band? Then you got to have a guitar, or he only had two guitars. So they had a little contest. He had a little contest who he give the guitars to. Well, you know what happened? I wasn't one of them yellow guys beat me to it.
Oh,
Them yellow
there it
guys beat
goes.
me to the guitars. So I didn't have a guitar.
So you could have been Jimi Hendrix, but then you jumped on the motorcycle.
No, my buddies, Seti Black and Kevin Black, they stayed across the street from 121st Street School right there in L.A. So now we getting out of school getting out of the class for fifth period, because only the band members could be. I mean, only his group can be in there. So I went over their house, and they had a Gemini 50 that wouldn't run, and that's where it all started from. And so it didn't have a carburetor on it. It wasn't firing, all of that stuff. And I went and found the carburetor and found all the pieces to get it started. And that's that right there. If my mom had got me the guitar, I wouldn't have been into this mess. So it was a blessing.
Well, even with that, right? Where do you there's no blueprint, there's no YouTube. There was
It wasn't none of that.
You just figured it out.
I just figured it out.
So it just came natural to you? It just this is like, this part looks like it goes over here, so let me put this over there and let me try it. Let me try to start it. All right, that didn't work. What's that process?
It was a process just like what you just said. Right there.
Trial and error, huh?
That's what you just said. This don't work. This might work. Oh, I know a guy over here that's got an old motor sitting here. Let me go get this and let me go get that. And we made it run. And that started it all right there.
That's crazy. So with your story, that's amazing is also, when we talk about just racing and street racing legends, especially in Los Angeles, Big Willie is a name that always comes up, and it's synonymous with, being out there with the brotherhood and things of that nature. But the crazy thing about it is you were there right next to him with the motorcycles. So you are a massive part of not only the street racing scene, but getting the gangs together and getting them off the streets into the track. Like, that's insane.
Well, back then it was crazy because I met Willie back then when I was probably 15 years old, but and he had his Brotherhood of Street Racing deal going and all of this stuff. So I would ride up there where these guys was and try to talk to him, and he was like, "Get away from me, kid." Get away from me. And but then all of a sudden everything started happening. I go to this race, and this race that the motorcycle club gave, which was Salton Sea, and that's when everything went crazy right then. That's when I would say everybody said, here's Black Tommy, here's Ice Cream Boy, because that was my nickname back then.
Ice Cream Boy. Where did that nickname come from?
It came from that same race at Salton Sea. We were there, and I'm 15 years old. You got to think, I'm 15 years old. I'm out there racing all these I had motorcycle club affiliation with the LA Deuces at the time. I was the youngest club patch member at the time, 15 years old. Damn. So you knew I had to mature. And then I worked at this place. I hung out at this guy's shop who was the president of a motorcycle club called the LA Defiant Ones. His name was Pee Wee. And Pee Wee, he was this other guy was Mr. Magoo, which was one of my guys that helped me a lot too later on. And so I'm at the track and I'm racing these old dudes and I'm whooping their ass, and so I whooped this guy named Doodoo. His name was Doodoo. I whooped Doodoo's ass. So Doodoo goes and get this guy named Touch and Go, which is Michael Hastings. He's in the King Cobra's motorcycle club. So I was like, what you guys want to do? So so I raced Doodoo for $10, and I whooped his ass. So I don't think no more of it. So they go, Touch and Go goes and get Mr. Magoo, who's the president of the Cobras and the president of the Southern Motorcycle Council, which was another group that put on the race. So they go get Pee Wee and say, we want to race that kid, little Black Tommy. And they look all around for me, trying to find me. They look all over this because it was an airport base where they was racing at. And they rented the track, the runway to have a race. So they looking all over for me, but they couldn't find me. Then they said, oh, there he is over there with the kids. And I was in the ice cream eating contest. There he is right there. Where? Over there eating ice cream with the kids. So that's how I got the name Ice Cream Boy. So I went out and they came and got me, and I went over and raced the guy Touch and Go and whooped his ass for $50. And right then, that's when everybody got to know me. Big Willie, everybody, they was like, wow, like that, so that's when I got the name. When I came back to LA the next day after whooping all these grown men's ass, that's when Ice Cream Boy, Black Tommy Bolton has arrived in the motorcycles.
Damn. So when you guys were racing, was that quarter mile or was that half mile that you guys were doing?
A quarter mile.
Quarter mile? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know those the airway strips, man, they drag it out sometimes. Like they'll go a full half mile.
It was real long. It was real long and it was hot. And you make a pass and you go down, and then you go all the way around and you come back down on another runway. So that's the way they did it there.
Yeah, race up and race back, huh?
Yeah.
So was like the airports kind of like, especially at the time, was that like graduation in a sense, or the next step? Because there weren't many outlets back then and the streets ruled. So like you had to earn your stripes in the streets first before you could even really think about taking some of these next steps that you was doing. Like, how was the street scene then?
The street scene was even crazier because I had to trick guys, and it was, again, I got so many tricks that I learned from these guys that you'll be amazed, and by the time I was 17, I'm racing these dudes for big bucks, all of this stuff. But, on right there where they race at now on 135th in Maine. And we raced on Florence in Maine. Then they had a place that we all met up called Johnny's Pastrami, and we raced crosswalk to crosswalk. So, and we as a kid, I'm graduating, and this is where it all came from right here. This was the real thing right there. So
how much was y'all big bets? Like what type of money were y'all betting back then? And mind you, this is at late 70s, right? Late 70s?
Yeah, late 70s going into the 80s. We was betting by the time I was 20, average bet was like $100, $500, something like that. and we was racing it like that. I mean, crazy, you know. But the money didn't get crazy until I got to probably 84, because all my buddies in my neighborhood, they knew that I messed with bikes, and it was sick then.
It on black.
Oh, it was sick. So you know, because like I told you, I grew up in South Central LA.
So when you were whipping all those guys, what was your setup? What bike were you racing?
I had a Suzuki. I started with a Kawasaki, then I got a 80 Suzuki and built it, and the rest was history after then. You know, so it was gone.
And those are all parts that you had to make, right? Because you said you couldn't order anything, so you couldn't
order stuff. But by me growing up, like I was telling Chris, I said I grew up in LA, and where I grew up at is priceless today. You know, I was telling him some of the things that I'd done. My mom and dad stayed on 120th and Main, and I could go back south. Then you got the Honda Man's motorcycle shop. Dude, Honda Man was the neighborhood mechanic. But Honda Man didn't like me because I was a dark dude. He was a yellow dude with long hair. You know, so he didn't like me. So I go by Honda Man's shop, and he would make me stand outside. But I keep on going. a little bit further, and you go down the main a little bit further, then you run into where Bill Simpson used to start doing helmets at this place, and which ended up being Simpson Racing. So I knew him before, you know. And you go a little bit further down the street, and it was VHT. That's the people that make all the traction stuff today, and spray paint. I could go by their shop, and then you go a little bit further, and then it was Iskandarian Cams, and so I will hang out with the Ed Iskandarian, which was the owner, his brother Luther Iskandarian, which was an old guy. So I could go to his shop. So it was just the mecca of all kind of stuff. And Ed, when I got older, Ed made cams for me, did everything. Anything that I needed, he let me know exactly what I need to do. And you go down the street a little bit further, and there was a place called a motorcycle shop, a high-performance motorcycle shop called RC Engineering. And that's when it starts getting crazier and crazier, because you go to this guy's shop, and when I first started going there, I was probably 13 years old, and the guys wouldn't let me come in the shop, and I go look in their trash cans and pick up old motorcycle magazines, all the different magazines and everything, and RC Engineering built mostly all of the high-performance motorcycle parts that was made at the time. And two guys worked there at the time, but the guy that I met that I still got a real good relationship with, it was Byron Hines, the owner of Vance and Hines, one of the owners, and Terry Vance. So,
I'm sorry, you're just blowing my mind right now. It's just like you're just going down this one street, and you got all the greats, all the greats. This is no bullshit. Go down. So now here's where it gets even crazier. So
Byron and Terry own Vance and Hines now, which is the $1 billion company now. Okay. And his son Matt was probably 3 years old at the time, and Byron would let me in the shop, and I would kind of help watch Matt while he ported heads and built motors. So I got to watch all of this stuff. But come out of that shop, go down the street a little bit further, on the left hand side, back on the left hand side of the street, it was another place. It was the Honda. It was American Honda, right? So across the street from American Honda was the Honda race team, where they built where they did the dirt bikes, the race bikes, all of this stuff, you know. But They were, and they was heavy in the motocross then. So you could go hang out a little bit with them. Go down the street a little bit further. It was the Goodyear Blimp place, okay? The Goodyear Blimp place is where me and my friend named Jamesy, we used to race by the time we were 14, we used to race our little motorcycles and mini bikes in the Goodyear Blimp parking lot. And they had about 4 or 5 big gates. And every now and then, a white man would come out there and be like, hey, y'all get out of here. And then we'll leave for that day and we'll come back the next Sunday or Saturday. So this one particular Sunday, we was there and it was nice. It was hot, and we go over there. We go down there so we could race. I had an SL 100 that I just put a big bore kit in, and he had a KDX Kawasaki 100, and we had stretched them out and made them look like little race bikes and everything. So we go over there and we racing up and down this long stretch, all this stuff, and here come the white guy again. But this is not the same white guy that usually tell us, get out of here, get out of here. This white guy was kind of cool, tall white dude, and he was kind of cool. And he came out there. He looked for about 5 or 6 minutes, just looking at us, racing up and down. Then we getting good passes in. So then he walked a little closer. Then he was like, hey, come here. Well, I'm like, shucks, we got 4 exits. He can't get us. He can't close all the gates. So I go over there to him. And I'm just talking to this tall white dude and stuff. And then I'm like, yeah, okay. And then he said, man, what kind of tires y'all use on these things? And he looked at my tire and stuff. He said, come on in and let me see if I can find a tire that'll fit your bike. So, so I'm looking at it. I'm looking like, okay, and James left me now, right? So, but, I got vice grips on my bike, so I wasn't worried about it, So I get in this shop and I'm seeing all these cars he had in there, and then Jamesy comes back. He comes back. I said, Jamesy, come on. White dude's cool, so he comes back. And turns out that guy was my friend forever. And guess who the guy was? Carol Shelby.
Oh my God! I got chills. There's no. What the hell?
The last. He's pretty much just named the holy grail of almost racing, and then he finishes off with Cal Shelby.
And so from that point on, the old white guy that was trying to make us leave all the time, Carol Shelby told him from that, if this kid comes over there, then I end up getting real cool with all those guys. And he gave me, from that point on, he gave me Goodyear race tires, any kind of tire I needed for my motorcycle from that point on.
It's amazing just how certain things in this world are unifiers, and like horsepower. As much as throughout the ages, like you have just bigots that are just being all facets of the world, right? But then you have individuals.
It was just so crazy because he gave me a tire when I got to, I think I was like 20, I think I was like 25, 20. I think I was 20 because I started racing NHRA Pro Stock when I was. And I had to go look at my notes up. I mean, I got all this stuff in upstairs right now. I think my first NHRA race was 85. And I went over to, I kept building newer and newer bikes. And Carol Shelby gave me I got a new bike. I built a new Pro Stock bike. And I went over there and told him I needed a tire for it. So he gave me a new tire for this Pro Stock Suzuki that I just put together. We went to a race at the Texas Motorplex. We went to the race down there when they first opened it up. So I went down into this race and I had my Pro Stock bike and my Pro Street bike with me. And at the time I think the record was 820, 828 or something like that. Well, here's this kid from LA that's racing a pro stock bike, and I go 835 on this thing, you know? So it's just a few hundreds from the record, you know?
Yeah.
So where the stuff gets crazy, and this is where you start seeing the white guys really come out, and they came over and said, hey, they seen my pro stock bike, and they said, dude, what size motor you got on this bike? I told them I got the legal motor, which is a 1325. And I mean, my friend brought the truck that I had there, and he got there late, so we only got one pass that Saturday. So which gave me the #1 spot, you know, qualified me #1.
One shot, one kill.
One shot, and then that's when I try to tell these guys it was hard in the beginning being the only black out there in the top classes. And so it's always been a challenge. So I go to the hotel thinking, yeah, I'm #1 qualifier. I come back Sunday morning, like, okay, I'm good. And then they tell me that pass that you made last night, it doesn't count. So you got to requalify because you qualified at the end of the race and you didn't qualify with the rest of the pro stock guys. I was like, dude, it ain't but 7 bikes in the class right now. They say, well, you're not qualified. I said, okay. So I said, okay, well, they said, well, we give him one more qualifying round. I was like, cool. I go out there and I do the same thing again. Okay. I do this, like I keep telling you, the record was at 828 at the time. I go 829 or 829, 830 flat. Then they come back and tell me, so now I'm like, I'm #1. What's going on now?
You guys, they test your gas?
Huh?
Let me guess, they test your gas after that, make sure it was legal?
Oh yeah, black guy. Yeah, they checked everything. So then they come back and then they tell me, said, well, and this is crazy now. Then they come back and said, so they putting the ladder together, the elimination ladder together. So and I'm like, why my name is back here and not up here? And they said, well, you didn't qualify. We had to throw your qualifying pass out. I said, why? I got a 1325 motor. Me and my bike weigh 630 pounds. Why you throw my qualifying pass out? The tire that you got on your bike is illegal. The tire that I just got from Carroll Shelby. They said that tire is so new that it's got, and then they showed me in the book, like, this is a new tire that you got, but it had to be in production available to the public, even though you got the tire and people knew this tire was coming out. And the only person had the tire was Vance and Hines and I. And they said, they said, well, since this tire doesn't count, you got to take this tire off your bike. You can run, and we're going to throw your qualifying passes out, and you got to run in the back of the pack. So I was like, cool. So I took the tire off of my pro street bike and tore their ass up.
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. Then they started complaining about it because I had to change wheels so much that I didn't have back brakes. They said my bike needed to go back through tech. I said, how can I have back brakes when I'm using a whole totally different rim from, the bike I had all new stuff. So I had to go put the other wheel on there, which was old. So a lot of these young cats don't know the changes that I went through in order to secure a spot for a lot of the stuff going on now,
And they weren't nitpicking like this with the rest of the field. They were just pretty much getting you because you were
Oh, me.
They're right there with that rule book that's just like a telephone book, like back in the day, and they just go to every single page, just making sure you're
the rule guy, it was Drag Bike USA at the time. The rule guy's name was Jack Dolan, and Jack Dolan was a real fair guy, and he was like, well, Tom, I can't. My hands are tied because these other pros is coming over here telling me
protesting
what's wrong, what I need to look. And they done found it in the rule book saying that this tire right here has had to be in production and it's got to be available to the public. I said, well, you know, and I was like, damn. Yeah. You know, so I learned, this was my first real official time of getting actually slapped with a bunch of crap, you know?
And like you said, while it was a rule in a rule book, right? Granted, I'll give you that, but you're not nitpicking everybody else like you're nitpicking me. Yeah, so your mindset, how was that? Like, did you get, like, were you angry? Or you just wanted to prove them, like, no matter what, I'm still going to go out there and do y'all in?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. And I was racing two classes at the time. I was racing Pro Street, and I was racing Pro Street, and I was racing Pro Stock. So they pulled the hex on me because I had to run the Pro Street bike, come all the way back around, and pull the wheel off the Pro Street bike and put it on the Pro Stock bike, and tighten everything up. And they was running them as the rounds got shorter.
It was harder to switch over.
It was harder to switch.
God.
So I ended up getting runner-up in both classes because I couldn't switch them up fast enough.
It's still so amazing, though, the relationships. And, you know, even with us building this organization, we get a lot of the time, people watching this, you'd be shocked at how much, you know, me and Sinclair just get berated online about, oh, you guys, this doesn't exist or this stuff didn't happen, which is why it's so important to tell your story about the things African Americans have to go through then and including now. But I also want to make it completely clear that, you know, this organization and what we do is an attack on anybody who's not Black, because a perfect example is like, look at Carroll Shelby. You know, Carroll Shelby is a white guy who doesn't care about what you look like. He saw guys out there having fun on motorcycles. They like horsepower like I do. Come check out this tire.
Yeah, and then the thing about it, it was never, you know, it wasn't never. I don't think it was ever back then. It wasn't so much. It was just the guys that some of the competitors back then just didn't accept us because we was, like you say, well connected, you know. So they couldn't accept a lot of that stuff. Yeah. And as I got older, then I seen that, you know, and I didn't have any problem voicing that. You know, if you get a chance, if you YouTube Tommy Bolton, and you'll see a video of me and Ricky when Ricky was probably in his teens, because I was 30 at the time, but I was probably 20. No, I was 27, so Ricky was probably in his teens. We was back down there in New Jersey, and you'll see how racing was then. It was just, you know, I'm bald now, but I had an afro at that time.
That was your helmet?
No, I was just getting to the point where I know this ain't gonna work. You know?
So everybody knows that was Ricky Gatson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, Ricky Gatson, from Philadelphia. He is probably the biggest name in motorcycle drag racing of our generation. And, you know, he's on record as saying that this man right here sitting with us was his inspiration to get into racing. So it's just amazing to see that all he's accomplished and to learn about everything you've accomplished and what you have to endure to blaze this trail for people younger than me and Sinclair to have this passion and have this ability to be in the NHRA, you know, become a professional.
Yeah, and we did the NHRA. I did the NHRA thing, and then I did I had the custom bikes. I had all of that stuff at the time. I had some of the best painters that ended up being super cool. All of that stuff, So all of these things was available to me. But I caught the blues whenever I would, you know, people don't understand. We caught the blues whenever we would leave the neighborhood. You know, no matter what we did, we caught the blues. They had a bike show that they used to have every year up in Oakland, a biking Oakland Roaster Show or whatever they call it. And I went as a kid there, and I remember they told me I couldn't. I'm telling you, it all came full circle. They told me I had built this clean Honda 750 with a Kawasaki motor on it and everything, and I took it up there to the show. They told me, "Oh no, this is invitational only." I was like, "What?" I done drove from LA to Oakland, which is almost
6 hour
500 miles.
drive.
Yeah, 500 miles, and you guys tell me I can't put this thing in the show. Are you for real? Then fast forward to 1980, 86. They calling me to bring my bikes up there and put in their show. I was like, oh, I said, wow,
Full circle.
yeah.
And so not only were you racing at that time, right? But you started your shop very young.
Yeah, I started my shop in when I turned around August of 1980.
And that was just racing, or you were already doing the baggers and all the other custom rides?
No, this is 1980. I was doing everything. I worked at I've been blessed. Like I said, I'm 61 years old. I've been blessed, and the only job that I ever had was working at a Honda dealer called California Honda, in right on the border of Beverly Hills, and it was on West Pico and West Boulevard, and that's the only job that I ever had.
Wow.
So that's amazing. You've been doing the shop since 1980s, racing, doing your shop. Now, with building the shop, was it easy for you? Because I know with being, racing in the streets and the guys betting big money on you, like your clientele in LA was right there for you already, right? I'm sure everybody sees you burning and going fast. They want to do the same thing.
Well, growing up in the, as they say, the hood, I had it all because once I started building faster bikes, you really learned how to do. You really had to. It was a different thing because everybody believed in you, and it was time to go racing. So the thing that I had to overcome was all of the mental mistakes that I was making when it came down to racing. Those are things I had to overcome, and then once I overcame them, it was lights out, as they say.
So you already built the fast bikes. You just had to mentally get your game sharp.
Yeah, I had my shop, like I said, in 1980. After I goofed up at the Honda dealer, I got to be. The Honda dealer was called California Honda, and they gave me the base to work on all the different bikes at the time. Because at that Honda dealer that I was at, I worked on a lot of celebrities' bikes and all kind of stuff like that at the time. So I've been around the bike game forever. And once I got my own shop, it was a whole different feel for me. I had my shop, and by me having the people around me, like the Vance and Hines, when they opened their first shop, and all of these guys, the guys from, I was getting pistons from Aries, and I knew, you know, which is CP Pistons was one of the biggest manufacturer of pistons right now. These guys all grew up in my neighborhood. Aries Pistons was down the street. So I knew all of these guys. Aries Pistons, CP Carrillo owns Aries. This is where all these guys grew up at. The guy, the president of the company, name is Snake, and he used to come to my shop as a kid. So I knew all of these guys.
Talking to you, you're the GOAT.
Yeah. So you know, so the guy, you know, real quick, I built my first fast 750 Honda, but I couldn't. I could win, but I couldn't win because I had built kind of a reputation as being that showboat, you know. So I had to learn how to ride. So a guy, my dad's friend named Big Bill, taught me how to ride, you know. And this dude was 5'6", 350 pounds.
Oh, damn.
Hey, yeah, so how could he teach me how to ride? He taught me this, you know, and when I first got my shop, my dad was trying to tell me, said, man, you know, he was trying to tell me at the time, he said, hey, Tom, you making all this money? How come you can't, you know, I come over here, you got the lights off or you got your phone cut off? I was spending all my money that I made trying to stay fast. Yep. And then he told me one day, he said, look here, Bill is needing a place to sit every day. And he'll put a foam in, cut your lights on. You know, so I was like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. Because Bill was the neighborhood bookie. He booked horses. so after a while, I talked to him and he came around there and the dude became to be for 3 years. The dude, that fat dude taught me so much and put me up on so much. I was, you know, without ever putting a leg over a motorcycle, he taught me how to do everything. Because we would sit at the shop. And he'd sit there and at the table at the counter, and he had 2 phones right there. And what he would do is you come in there and you look at his scratch paper. You look at his scratch paper like, oh, what's this? You want to bet on this horse? You want to bet on this horse? And he would do that all the time. And then so one day I asked him, I said, how you know what this dude's gonna bet, or how you know what this dude's gonna bet? He said, you got to watch the way they walk. You got to watch the way they carry themselves. You got to watch all of this stuff, boy. You know, so I was like, yeah, right. And then so every day he would come in the shop and he would have $5 worth of change because it was payphones, a dime. And we started betting nickels and quarters and stuff. And, oh, this dude gonna come in, this motherfucker ain't gonna bet, but $2 exacta. He ain't gonna bet nothing but this. So after about a year and a half, I learned how to read people a little bit better and read their walks and their personalities and all this stuff. So that was my start right there. And then I would build these fantastic bikes and I go out there and try to race them and goof up. And then that's when Bill decided to start helping me, you know, how to do all this stuff, you know? So that's when I really started learning how to ride. Like I told you, this dude never put a leg over a motorcycle. And I had a buddy of mine that used to hang out at the shop with me every day. His name was Spider. And Spider, he told me, said, I'm gonna bet you, me and Spider I'm gonna let Spider go out there and race you. And Spider gonna race you. Every time you win, I'm gonna give you $20. Ooh. You know, like that. If you don't win, I'm gonna give it to Spider. So he turned around when that happened. He turned around and we go out there and we was betting, and he was and I was lose every time because Bill made sure there was people out there to watch me, to put pressure on me, and all these kind of things. So when I would do that, I would screw up and lose. And he said, man, you got to calm down. You got to calm down. So Bill was telling Spider how to beat me every time. So that's how that happened, you know?
Yeah, mentally sharpening you. Gotcha.
Yeah, so
It's dope that you had that though. Somebody that knew how to rewire your brain or teach you how to rewire your
well,
brain.
he was teaching, because he was teaching me how to win, you know, and I didn't understand that, you know, so I didn't understand that right there, you know.
It's so much about winning, and all athletes
They
know.
didn't,
You're
you
in the
know,
car. It's
you
a
know, and I
mental
got,
game.
yeah, it's more the racing. It's more to it just having a fast bike. If you don't have the mental sharpness to do it, uh, you know, it's like it's all. Might as well don't put no gas in it.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So and that's why, you know, a lot of guys have a lot of tools, but they don't know how to use them. You know, and the thing that I always try to do with my guys is just, you know, sometimes is trying to use them for our abilities. And by us being black, it's a little bit harder. So it's got to be sharper, you know.
So let's talk about that, because we were talking about how everybody was taking like a liking to you, and you know, from Carroll Shelby to, you know, all the people down the block, from the owner of CP Pistons to this guy Bill, that's just kind of this molding you, making you into this champion. When did you start actually becoming that person that was going to mold the next generation? When did that start happening?
Well, that started happening when I got about that started happening when I got about 31, 32, you know. That's when I started just saying that maybe it's time for me to get off of the bike, you know. So that, you know, and that's when I started trying to help all the other guys, you know. And some of the guys came to me and wanted to do all this stuff. It's just like Michael Phillips. He came to me and spent a week at my shop when he was in his teens.
Yo, this guy's Rolodex is ridiculous. And it's funny, like, even that outside of racing, like, you know, me and him were talking before, and he's telling
Give
me.
me 1 second, okay? Yo, Ron.
All right, I'll bring it back. So what I was saying was that Rolodex that he has is ridiculous. And I remember him telling me stories about, you know, outside of racing, Suge Knight and Freeway Ricky Ross, and just growing up in LA. You know?
Well, and here's the thing. If you look, you know, me and Rick are like this now, you know, we like this now. And if you look, you know, and I'm not being crazy, but I'm just telling you the truth. This is all I ever. This is all I ever done. You know, from, you know, I don't know if Chris told you that even Sylvester Stallone came to me trying to bite my style.
Everybody wants to be like TomBo, huh?
They did a story on us in 1986, how we was street racing and how we was racing and making money doing street racing every night. Big Willie was there, everybody was there, but I was the main fixture of that story. And so it's been around for a while, but some of the things that when we street raced, then it was like, you talking about pressure, go to an NHRA race or go to one of these Drag Bike USA races or IDBA race where I raced all over the United States, racing with these white guys and stuff. It wasn't no pressure from the pressure that you got in the hood.
Oh yeah, you got money on you. You better win.
Because now, check this out. You talk about pressure. This dude named Potsy comes over and he wants to race us. He wants to race me. So everybody know that I can beat everybody. So this is when it starts getting real. We go to the street races over in Florence and Maine. That's where everybody would meet up at. We go up there, then we go on 135th, or we go to all these different streets, or we go to Little Alameda, Big Alameda. We go over there and we race. This is when it really gets real. When your homeboy happens to be Freeway Rick. Well, your other homeboy happens to be Michael Harris. Michael Harris is the dude that put Suge Knight up on death row. You follow me? So they like, so Rick like, yo, homie, what? How much they want to race for? And I was like, well, Rick, I got it. No, homie, tell them whatever they want to bet. And so Rick hands me $3,000 or $4,000. Then Michael Harris hands me another $3,000 or $4,000. You know, so now I'm telling these cats whatever y'all want to bet. So Potsy was riding for these dudes called the Cadillac Boys. Mm-hmm. You know, so now, it goes from a $3,000 bet to a $12,000 bet. So, you know, so it wasn't no more that little racing in the neighborhood. You know, it was more pressure. And then I felt more pressure when somebody would come from the west side and want to race me, and then everybody in the neighborhood know that I'm finna race this guy. And so when they come, you know, I got my mom and her 3 friends. I'm like, damn, they giving me their $20 that they didn't put together. You know,
that milk and eggs money.
And everybody else giving me their money. You know, and I'm like, I can't bet. They betting side bets. So, you know, so you talking about pressure. I was getting, so at an early age, I was getting pressure because no matter how I did it, I was getting pressure because if you race these dudes on the street over there and you lost, that means you couldn't go to the liquor stores, you couldn't go to the markets.
Everybody down.
You go to Al's Market, which was the Chinaman's. You go to the Chinaman's and you buy a carton of eggs, and then you open them up, they all busted. You know, then and then you go back, hey, these eggs was busted. And then one of the dudes in the back is like, Tom, maybe you win sometime, your eggs wouldn't be busted.
Oh man.
And so you had to really step your game up.
So you couldn't even eat. You just you got to go outside the town just to get something to eat.
Man, it was crazy. So you know,
he got to go to Oakland. He got to drive 6 hours to Oakland for some eggs.
so then when you go to this, it was a neighborhood restaurant called M&M Soul Food, right? You know, you probably heard of it. That's what the M&M's. You go to M&M's, everybody's sitting in there. You win. You ain't got to pay for your breakfast. You ain't got to pay for your lunch. You ain't got to pay for nothing. You lose, you got to get it to go. So I learned how to win. You know.
What made you want to? What made you want to do that transition, essentially from the streets? Well, obviously, there's so much money being made out there, and probably more than what the purses were paying in the NHRA at the time. What made you want to make that transition over?
I really wanted to get off the streets because I had so many people in my ear about how dangerous it is. Mm-hmm. And that same street that I'm telling you about, that I raced on forever, my cousin was racing another one of my buddies out there, and my cousin had a real fast Volkswagen at the time, and he had a crash and died. His name was Smoke. You know, so that happened in 1980, the end part of 1988. So that's really made me really get away from racing so much on the street, you know. You know,
so tell us about now, you know, your business is, you're building these bikes, and they're absolutely amazing. And I love your slogan that says, you know, one of your bikes, they won't get lost in the parking lot. And, you know, you've been in pretty much every motorcycle publication with just your baggers, not even just highlighting your career as a racer, but tell us about your bikes in your shop and how that's been going.
Well, the shop is going cool. The shop is going real cool. I'm getting older now, so I want to cut back on the work as much as I can. So I'm gonna take the time this year, the year coming up. I'm trying to finish up what I got in here, and I'm only gonna do the specialty high-end type stuff. And I'm gonna concentrate more of getting more championships and doing all this stuff. Because one of the things that drive me doing this stuff is seeing the guys that came on behind me elevate to the next level. So that motivates me even more. Because here in my shop, I got like 4 or 5 riders that's top notch. I got this guy named Glenn Nickelberry. I made him be the winningest funny bike rider there is for as a black guy. He's either won. Me and him have won over 160 races, and he's got over 240 plaques at his house. And me and him hooked up when I moved here in '96, and he set the record. He was the second black to go over 200 miles an hour, and he was the first black to go in the sub 660s. So man, and the highlight of my career will have to be when Glenn Nickelberry went 660, and Byron Hines happened to be there, and Byron told me out of his own mouth, when you see the Vance and Hines team, whenever he wants to get his sons motivated to do this stuff, he said, "Look, man, I watched Tommy Bolton make a bike go 660, and he have not one computer on the bike." Y'all got all these computers? Man, why I call Tommy?
Wow, that's amazing. You get a lot, and the dope thing about the shop is that these guys have you within arm's reach to really pick your brain. How receptive? I mean, you being who you are kind of speaks for itself, but do you think the younger generation is receptive to learning sometimes?
Well, they don't. Some of them learn, but they don't have to learn, because, like I said, if you got $30,000-$40,000, you go buy a bike that's already fast. But
ready though. That's the thing.
they got these bikes are so it's nothing like when I was coming up, where you could just you could go to the dealer and go to the dealer from back then. You can go buy. I'm just going back this. If you go buy a 750 Honda or a Kawasaki, the fastest that thing gonna go is probably 1180s, 1170s. You can go buy a GXXR 1000, ZX10, any of those bikes, a Honda, any of them, and they low 9-second, 8-second players right now.
Right out the box. Yep.
Right out the box. And if you're 130, 140 pound rider, dude, you flying.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're flying. So, because when the street racing come, these guys, the fun thing that I like, and go to street races sometime, because it's all kind of legal and stuff, because a lot of the street racer guys hang out at my shop or come over to my shop now, so.
So you said that you're going to try to get back into racing this year?
Yeah, last year I raced a couple. I made a few passes, and you would have thought I won Indy. We was at the street out the Outlaw Armageddon, which is where all the street racers race, right? Mm-hmm. And I won, and I was more happier because I had 5 bikes entered in the race, including myself. And after the first round, I had won, so all 5 of my bikes had won, including the old man. You couldn't tell me shit.
I still got it.
Shit. Like that. I'm I don't went as far as getting T-shirts made. He's back, all that stuff. So I'm redoing that bike right now, putting a bigger turbo, bigger motor, all that junk on it now.
Bigger turbo? How big of a turbo are we talking?
You putting a big one.
right, I'm not
know. Yeah.
I had to ask, though. I had to ask.
He was close, though. He was thinking about it. So do you think with the younger generation, the guys that come into your shop, are they more interested in building for speed? Or are they more interested in building for the shows? And even with that, with the speed guys, are they interested in like trying to make the jump to the NHRA, or are they comfortable with just the more of the smaller events?
Well, it's I would have to say nobody's thinking about the NHRA.
Hmm.
You know, because with what's going on now with like the street outlaw shows and all of that, nobody want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like in a couple weeks they having a race down in Orlando. They having a no bar race.
Mm-hmm.
90,000 to win.
Yeah, that's bigger than any purse that you're gonna get in NHRA. That's for sure.
90,000 to win. 90,000 to win. And this is so man, this is what NHRA.
Yeah.
These guys ain't thinking about the NHRA.
So it's more about the money now, the appeal, and the camaraderie versus, nobody cares about getting a Wally or any. You think that's, we have guys in the NHRA, like, you got the Antron Browns that have done amazing things and so many other guys. But do you think that the NHRA is kind of too late with trying to reel in these guys and these smaller events is just more appealing versus having to do that in a whole season? It's not about the trophies, more about the money.
Well, the NHRA really got the platform for everybody to be propelled to do this thing, but they don't give you the money that you actually need. I raced NHRA Pro Stock, and I was one of the first guys to bring first black guy to bring major sponsorship to NHRA. So, and then I raced the NHRA with Michael Phillips and Ricky Gatson. I raced with Michael when he was sponsored, when he was riding for Troy Baxter, which had some backing from Mike Tyson at the time, and Lloyd Strauss. I work with all three of those guys. They race NHRA, and NHRA just didn't do enough to push the brothers, in my opinion. Antron's doing an amazing job. I met Antron when he first got started racing.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was pretty close to Antron. So, it was, but he went over to the cars, but it's only so much they let us do. It's just like when Mike was the first first brother to win an NHRA race in 1995. Okay, it was cool. Okay, but it was like, Antron was the first top fuel champion. Don't say nothing. But the thing that NHRA doesn't do, and here's where you're gonna trip out at. One of my other buddies that know Bodie, Maurice DuPont, he drove top fuel dragsters back then, and you probably didn't even know that.
No,
he's one of the first brothers to drive a top fuel dragster, and he's from the Bay Area, And not only him, the first brother to win NHRA race was Eric McCullen. I mean, Eric Wright out of LA. These are my partners that I grew up with. These are my guys that I took to the drag strip with me back then.
We don't hear about any of that stuff. So that's
you don't hear none of that. And wait, let me
That's why we're
show you.
here, because we
Exactly.
need stories from you guys.
You see, Tony McCullen, he died in an accident years ago. But Tony McCullen was the first guy was the first dude that come out there and get a really do good in a funny car. Him and Eric Wright, go to the finals and all that. He had Wayne Dupree, Linwood Dupree's, who's one of NHRA's head guys at the time, son crew chiefing. I'm telling you, this stuff goes crazy. And then this is where you're going to trip at. In 1980, 1986, we went to the World Finals. 85, we went to the World Finals, and I took my buddies there with me, and they were like, "Man, this is crazy. I like this, Tom. I like this." These are my buddies that was betting with me, was putting the money up for me. Eric Wright, Tommy Whitmore, Freeway Rick, and it's getting hot in here. And we went to NHRA. We at the NHRA race at the Winter Nationals, and they said, "Man, I like these cars, man." So we go over to this guy that was driving a Top Fuel car, a funny car, and we seen that he had the car for sale. We walk over to this guy and say, "Hey, you want to sell it? How much you want for that car?" And the guy name was Al Segrini. He used to drive a car called the Brute Force. Mm-hmm. He was back from New Jersey, New York or something. This dude looked at us and looked at us and like, "Dude, you know how much it costs to run one of these cars? It costs $6,000 a pass." And my buddy looked at him and said, "What? $6,000 a pass?" He said, "Oh, okay." He said, well, sure, get out of it. I'll buy it. How much you want for the car right now?" So this guy looked at us so crazy that we just walked away from him. And my buddy walked down. We walked down the hall. We walked down the track a little bit further, and we ran into this guy named Tom Gross. And Tom, my buddy made a deal with him and bought his funny car. Red Thin. And there's a dude named Lance Larson was the crew chief. And then my buddy Tommy Whitmore decided he wanted one. So they bought a Top Fuel car and a funny car. And then my buddy Freeway Rick, he was a little bit more he didn't want that car. So he went over to this guy, Dick Landy, and bought all three of his Super Comp cars at the time.
Yeah.
So
how do we for the future generations, right? What do you think that we need to do better to get these kids interested in continuing to enhance the African American footprint in motorsports? Because for me, it wasn't a thing that, and I grew up in New York, and racing's not really a thing there as far as on a professional level. And we have initiatives at the African American Racers Association that we're doing, that we're trying to introduce motorsports to the youth. So when we're 6 feet deep, our participation continues to grow in what we love versus, because listen, there's a stigma, even with us growing up, with cars. Oh, that's just a white guy thing. Why are you doing that white guy sport? Why is it? Like, it's not. It's like, it's for anybody who wants to be a part of it. So what are the things that you think we need to do to kind of change that stigma that still exists?
It's so many different things that I think that we got to educate them on. And like you said, so many people have, once you get past the negative comments, then it is more perceptive to everybody. I believe some of the things that we got to do is we got to use this platform like what you got now, what you guys doing now is beautiful. You got to let more people know what you got out here, because we have hardly anything that represents the African American, the Black Americans, passion of what they're doing. It's like I said, it's kind of like one of them things. You do this stuff, but you got to be quiet. Floyd Mayweather is a bad motherfucker in this boxing shit. Mm-hmm. All these dudes is bad. Okay, they let the world know. So I think we got to do the same thing for what we do in this motorsport thing. So we got to do the same exact thing.
But to jump in real quick, and it's funny that you say that, because I'm a huge boxing fan. So you look at the transition into Mayweather's career, right? And, being with Al Heyman and stuff like that, but he really wasn't able to really put that, because he used to be Pretty Boy Floyd. Mm-hmm. And then when he kind of started taking control of his career and ownership in Mayweather Productions, and then Money Mayweather came out, then it exploded. So I think a big part of it with anything is how ownership is so important, because you're not necessarily worried about, I could get fired for being who I am, or as
and that's exactly what I'm saying. You guys got this platform right here to take it to the next level. We got to let more and more people understand exactly what's going on. The thing that when you look at Mayweather's stuff, and you look at Mayweather's deal, and I took up, and not getting off the subject, but I watched a lot of it by me racing, and I had to find sponsors all the time, and I got the look that that I have to. If I don't believe in myself or market myself in the right direction, people won't know what I'm doing. Yep. I made a bunch of YouTube type videos and stuff, and I see people comment on my stuff, so they know what I do. They, and some of the stuff I've done and some of the stuff people do, but at the same time, there's always going to be somebody that, as bad as sometimes our own kind are our worst enemies. So we got to keep pushing to let everybody know what we do. It's like the old McDonald's saying, everybody said, I don't want no Big Mac. I don't want this. I don't want that. But Big Macs are terrible. But who's one of the number one burger places? McDonald's. So, regardless of what we say, we just got to push this stuff more and more. That's all it is. We just got to push it. I believe that we need to let people know more about what we're doing. And I think the thing that you guys got going, I think this right here is what we need. We need to let more people know about exactly what you guys are doing, about you guys' program, and you got to highlight some of these brothers more and put them out there. Because they do it. Yeah. The other races do it. So we got to do it. We got to grab each other and just keep on going. That's the only thing that we can do.
And it's not funny, but it's a situation. I was actually just talking to Sin about this not too long ago, is that, we get berated with certain comments, and it's like, oh, well, you calling it the African American Racers Association is racist and is divided. But I had to talk to somebody and say, listen, You're complaining about the African American Racers Association, the Black History Month, but you're never looking at the reason why we need these things anyway. If everything was equal and the playing field was equal and everybody was getting their fair share of exposure and equal distribution of whatever the case is, then you don't need to say, hey, we need to build something Black History Month to celebrate and tell our story. If everything was equal in motorsports and everything was the same, then we wouldn't need this platform, the African American. I wish we didn't need the platform, but we do. And the Black American Racers Association, you know, which folded or was defunct in the mid-70s, was the first to do it. And there hasn't been an organization since then to take this baton and be like, we're going to tell these stories. And like I said at the beginning, you know, some of the names that, like, I can't go talk to Wendell Scott. I can't talk to some of these, Rojo Jack and some of these pioneers. But you, as big as the name that you are, we have the opportunity to talk to and tell your story that people understand it. And for those of you who are watching, like, we are super passionate about this. And I need you to understand that this organization is not an anti-white, it's not an anti-Hispanic, it's not an anti-anything. It's about unifying people. But we need everybody to know the stories of our heroes, the guy who's sitting right here, TomBo, talking to us, that has paved the way to allow us to enjoy these motorsports. Because if you think about it, you know, Indy, when's the 90s was the first time they had an African-American race? Like, this is stuff that hasn't been readily available to us. So imagine in the motorcycle world, we interviewed Bill Lester, and Bill Lester said nobody wanted to give him freaking sponsorship. So imagine, you know, with you, what you just said.
And then one of my buddies that owned a car shop in LA, he called me up one day and told me, Tom, and I was just so like, and I was telling him, I said, dude, are you crazy? He was like, Tom, he said, Tom, I've been watching you damn near all my life, you know, and I own this, you know, I got this shop, I'm working on all the celebrities' cars, and I got some money, I want to go racing. So I'm thinking, oh, I got him now, you know? And he's like, nah. He said, I'm gonna fly you to the races. Tell me what you think. And when he did it, I was like, dude, what are you gonna do? He said, I'm gonna do an IndyCar. He said, I can lease a program from this, lease a car program, and I'll put this guy in it, and I'm gonna do all this. This guy owned the shop, Mark Layton at 310. You know, this was one of the guys that I grew up with. We used to race dirt bikes with. I've noticed on you guys' deal, I've seen you had him on there, you know? So I was like, oh, man. But like you said, I know a little bit, I've been around this stuff, so I know a little bit more than you think.
These are the stories we need. This is what we need to document it out of your guys' mouth. And when I was racing for Torco Oil, I had a guy that was my agent at the time, John Leslie Brown, and he was out of Cincinnati, Indy at the time, and he exposed me to so much more racing that I was just like, I thought that I seen so much more that we could be doing as a whole, because John Leslie Brown was one of Eddie Cheever's agents at the time, and so he flew me all over. Not only did I go to Indy to watch the Indy cars run, I went with him, you know, went to watch some of the NASCARs, and I got to see how they got a guy and they pushed him out there, you know. So I've seen a lot of this stuff, you know. So, you know, we need to do the same thing for us, you know. I think you guys, African American Race Association, I think this platform we need to put, you know, and I say we because I'm African Black. I don't know nothing about Africa, but I'm Black. I'm from Mississippi. You know, so, but I think we just need to push it a little bit more and let everybody know, because you got stars of tomorrow, you know, so, and, you know, so we need to push it a little bit more. I'm willing to do whatever I can to get it, to help you guys get it to the next level.
And I think we need to just let the rest of the world know that this is out there. You know, that's what I believe.
Thank you for the support. And what Chris was saying earlier is just like because BARA, the Black American Racist Association, they just got defunct in the mid '70s, and we're now in the 2020s. You know, we lost 50 years worth of documentation and hearing these stories, because unless they were publicized and they were written about, people were breaking records and you wouldn't even know. We have people
Well,
email us all the time, and it's just like, man, like I didn't even know that was a thing. Just like the guy with the land speed record, it's just like we didn't even know that even existed. That somebody was out there.
It's just like right now. I got a buddy in California, Rodney Flournoy. Him and his dad, the Flournoys, they race funny cars way back then. They race funny cars. Now he races nostalgia funny cars. You got all these people that people don't know. Like in my neighborhood where I grew up, they had another black drag racer, and I thought he was crazy back then. His name was Frank Kemp. These dudes had top fuel cars. It was another guy back then in the neighborhood. I can't think of his name. He gave the Pentagons, Cruz and Tony Pentagons, they start on driving his alcohol dragster. These dudes all had these, but it was hard to get all of this stuff. I remember going over to Joe Pisano, Vanolia Pistons, with my buddies back in the 80s, and Joe Pye was like, we went over there and we was like, hey, we want to get some pistons for our car, my buddy's car. And Joe Pye was like, oh, okay, because I know Joe Pye, that's Vanolia. I go over there, tell me what do you need, because I know his brother. He owned a powder coating shop. I said, we need 100 sets of pistons. 100 sets of pistons? What are you doing with 100 sets of pistons?
That's a whole lot of nitrous.
I said, we want a funny car, so we need a bunch of pistons so he can race. So, so these are like, Joe Pye was just like, couldn't believe it, because he was looking for the Kenny Bernsteins and those guys to come over there. We need to let more people know this. And then when it came to us in LA, as far as the street races was concerned, we did all of that stuff. I tried to drive a pro stock car at one time, and my buddy Lord DC spent the money for me to get to drive the car, and I didn't like cars. I'm gonna stay on the motorcycles. I'm good on the bikes, I was good on the bikes. The car, it was a kid named Melvin LaFleur. He drove the car for him. So it's a lot of brothers out there that done this stuff but didn't get their just due when it came time for all of this stuff. It was just like they didn't, like I always said, Bro Bill told me, said you got to concentrate and want to do this a little bit more than the next man. And I think it's like that on everything. Michael Jordan didn't get good overnight. He practiced free throws forever. And that's just I'm 61 years old and I'm still trying to find that one niche, because I don't think that I got what I didn't realize. A couple of years ago, I seen an article that Harley Davidson wrote on the Harley Davidson blog, and then they said 7 black. And my friend sent it to me, and I was like, he was like, man, you got to read this. And I looked at it, and it was like 7 most important Black Americans that didn't get their just due. And I looked, and I was looking at it, and I see all these iconic people that done this stuff. That first guy that Harley Davidson gave a break to, gave him a dealership, a franchise, and to be included with this guy, it blew my mind. It just blew my mind on that stuff. So there's a lot of things. you know. And then, like I was telling Chris, I said I grew up in L.A. and I watched Jesse James do a deal on choppers one time, on the Easy Rider choppers, the Easy Rider bikes. You know, me being 14, me being a kid, and I go over to this guy's shop one day, and I watched Jesse James talk about this guy, Benny Hardiman. Benny Hardiman was the guy that built those Easy Rider bikes that what was it, Peter Fonda and Jack Nichols and what was the other guy named? He built those bikes, and I used to go to this guy's shop, you know, and the guy was super cool, you know. As a kid, I was like, wow. I was like, damn. And he just not, like you said, they just not talking about Benny, and Benny was the guy that built these bikes back then.
Yeah, I think the narrative is changing in organizations like NASCAR with the Drive for Diversity program, and I feel like just through the changing of the times and now we're not asking for more than anybody else, but it's just to be, hey, big corporations, whether you're Nike, whether you're NASCAR, whether you're Pepsi, Coke, whatever the case is, you know, when you're looking at, you know, Group A, make sure you include everybody. Open up that, whether it's women, whether it's transgender, I don't care where you are. But for our fight, it's about, you know, education, about getting in these elementary schools and helping these inner city programs with you know, these driver programs and understanding STEM and STEAM and getting these kids interested in motorsports. So when they become our age, they have the footprint. You know, a lot of racers, you know, grew up in areas where the South, and they came up through racing, right? On a professional level. You look at NASCAR, 90% of the guys all came from essentially the same spots, the same programs. You know, those aren't in the inner cities. So if you provide those dollars to these schools and these programs, with our program, we're going to be providing scholarships. We're going to be providing programming. So these kids can learn about this from a young age and to be interested, not like us when I'm in the teens, but when they're young, 5, 6, 7, they're getting in these cars just like everybody else is. And that's not happening. And those conversations, you know, are starting to happen now. But on the flip side of that, they have to know your guys' stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, and I'm with that same deal. I would mind we could find a youngster that wanted to learn some of this stuff. I like to teach them. I like to show them a lot of this stuff. You know, some of the stuff that I do. I got a kid, a nephew now, and he just now getting started. His name's Lewis Brown Jr., and he watched me, and he's got his own race program going. But his pop made me so happy because he said a lot of the stuff that I'm learning now, Uncle Tom, I watched him do it for years. And I see how he had to play politics with these guys to get along, but at the same time, my determination is what got me this far. And I watched his hustle and stuff. But at the same time, here's a kid that grew up around this stuff. And just like you said, how do we get in these inner schools to give them something to do? You know, because this, to me, the youths it's easy for the youths, because if they could get on the computer and build a car for, you know, for drifting or a dirt bike for jumping, or a car, a NASCAR, they can do this, the real stuff. They can learn the real thing. If they take the time to learn how to get from stage 1, 2, you know, get these higher levels, this stuff wouldn't be anything for them to adapt to. You know, like you said, the youths are what's happening.
Yeah, and it's not an African-American only fight. And you look at, you know, civil rights movement, right? You could look at Huey P. Newton, and you could look at Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Not only did they have whites sitting in the audience listening to them, but they also had them standing next to them in the stage. So you have businesses and organizations like Larson Motorsports, you know, they run the jet cars, and they have a Black Marine racing in a jet car. Like, the Larsons don't care about the color of your skin, right? If your character is what it is,
and you're good at what you are. you're good. And you're good. You know.
You're good, exactly. If I suck as a driver, it doesn't matter what I look like. I just ain't gonna make it. Racing ain't for everybody. But don't put me at -30 just because of the color of my skin. You know, start me like everybody else and let me show you that I suck and you kick me out because I suck, and it is what it is.
Yeah, because it's nuts. Because I promote a lot of races too, and I do that.
Talk about that. Talk about these races you promote.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, they go nuts. They go hard. You know, we just had a race not too long ago. It was called Shorty Black Presents Soul in the Valley.
I see Nitrous Express. I see Torco. I see CP Pit. You got everybody on there.
These are my people.
It's all your peoples, huh?
These are my people. So they're not afraid to help. You know, they're not afraid to help. As a friend of mine tells me a lot, he said, a closed mouth would never get fed, you know?
Don't get fed.
You know, so, you know, I'm asking. You know, you only can tell me no.
Yeah,
that's true.
A couple times.
You know, a couple times is a requirement. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back.
I see you in 3 months.
Yeah, I'll be back. It ain't no big deal. It ain't no big deal. You know, so you got to just have. You just got to kind of have you got to have a sense of humor. At the same time, you got to want what you want. If somebody like what you guys are doing, I think this is great. You know, you got to just push it further. That's all. Push it further.
We owe it to you guys to do it, and this is why we have this platform. And like I said, to give you guys the roses while you're still here, tell your stories, and pay it forward, and give the generation under us the opportunity, so they don't have to go through the things that you had to do to pave the way. And we appreciate.
Well, it's just like you were saying. It's just like you were saying. It's just like you were saying. I talked to Bodie a couple of times, but one of his cousins is one of my buddies that raced with me back in the day. So I know he came from, like you said, racing family. These dudes, we was all racing up in Fremont, California. I mean, doing it. So this ain't nothing new. This is nothing new. We've been doing it. It's just now the world just happened to shine in on all of this stuff. Street racing been going on long as everything else has been going on.
It started with horse and buggies and horses in them, and here we are.
Yeah, and then you got, like the guy said, drag racing started when the second car was built. When the second car, I can beat you. So that's it. That's the way it was in my neighborhood. Shucks, you come down the street and that's how I learned how to work on stuff, because I couldn't afford to go get all this $high stuff, but I knew people. I knew people.
So TomBo, tell everybody where your shop is located, the number where they can call you. So, you got these baggers that you're building is amazing. How can they get in contact with you if they want a bagger built?
TomBoRacing.com, or my phone number is 405-493-9033.
All right.
In Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City.
33 South Fix Green. What's that?
Down there. What's that? What you guys got down there? Brick City? Bricktown?
Bricktown.
Crazy. Yeah. Love it down there.
Yeah.
Had some good times there.
For real? You been down here before?
Yeah, I've been down there a couple of times. I get around a little bit.
Okay. Well, next time you in town, you know where they come. You know where you got a place they come crash out at.
That's my first stop.
You can come. You come check out the because my buddies all tell me I got my own language. They say they call it Tom Banglish, because I twist the word up on you in a minute, so you can come hang out with the Banglish one.
TomBo, man, I appreciate you taking the time to chop it up with us and tell these amazing stories. And
my mind is still blown. I'm sorry.
Absolutely insane. We are going to work together. We're gonna, work with you inside the Oklahoma community and get this youth in and interested in everything that you're about and learn your story. And we're going to be soldiers in this fight together to do the work we need to do to continue our presence in motorsports. So TomBo, thank you so much.
Sir, been
All
honored.
right. Peace. All right.